Mm. Welcome, everybody, to Create a World. We're having a couple of technical difficulties, so it's not going to go to YouTube Live the way we normally do. It'll be posted as soon as possible after the broadcast here. So we're doing it differently. But welcome and thank you for joining us. We have a really special guest with us today. For those of you who are new to watching the broadcast, Create a World is a way we kind of invented to have conversations about people's creativity and investigations and explorations of living from balance and harmony and new ways of being with each other in this field we call life. And some of us who have known each other for several years, we've done a lot of conversations, excuse me, amongst ourselves. You know, who do we have to be? What is that? What's missing from the system we were born into? What does it take? But then we decided, we need to just invite people to join us in this conversation and get out there in the wider world. So today, and we've been doing this for, what has it been, about a year, Electra?
Yeah, about that.
Amazing people that have accepted our invitation to come on and talk with us. Today, for me, is like a red letter day because Electra, of course, is joining us, but Melanie Jones is the first person who's asked to come on. She asked, "Can I join?" Um, and I'm gonna have you talk more about yourself in a couple of minutes, or do you want to do that now and then I'll tell people
No, go
what
ahead.
started? Okay, so what activated her request? A couple months back, I did a broadcast with a man named Gregory Surfer, and he wrote a book called "I Am Still Here," and we had a brilliant conversation about that. He was writing about the process, his story. So it was sort of fictional and not fictional at the same time of uh, loving someone with borderline personality disorder, which can be very challenging for the person connected to the person with borderline personality disorder, but it's very challenging for the person with that diagnosis as well. And hence the title, I Am Still Here. It's both sides. I am still here for you, and the person with it saying, but I'm still here. It was a really amazing conversation. He's a medical doctor and very generous with his time for that broadcast. And Melanie let me know he's been ill. And that just seemed important to share with you all since he was a guest on our broadcast in a certain kind of way. That makes him part of, the greater web of our tribe. And so, um, Melanie, I'm going to turn it over to you right now. Let you introduce yourself. Please tell us whatever you want to tell us, but like, who are you? Where did you come from? How did you know Dr. Surfer?
Yeah.
And what had you reach out to me?
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it. So, Melanie Jones. I live in Cape Town, the most beautiful city in the world in South Africa. I have two adopted little girls, 6 and 9, beautiful little angels. Well, not always angels. That's my story, and I'm sticking with it. My work life is in finance. I specialize in the hospitality industry. It's really boring. And but at the moment, I'm actually a stay-at-home mom, but also doing some work for Gregory, actually, on the book with social media and setting up websites and getting like organized with that as well. I mean, the book's doing so well without any social media. So so that's what I'm doing. And if you want to contact him, I can actually give you an email address now, if you'd like, for people to reach him.
Okay, if he's open to that, that would be
Yes.
awesome.
Yeah, and that's the official contact@gregorysurfer.com.
All right, hold on. I'm
That's
going to write it down because we're going to put it. .com. That's a website, right?
No, that's the email address. Contact@gregorysurfer.com.
Oh, I get it. Contact at. Thank you.
Yeah.
Because then I can put it at the, or ask, excuse me, Christina, to put it at the end of the broadcast.
Yeah. The website's coming. I'm working on it.
Okay.
Getting
So
there.
how did you come
Yeah.
to know him? Do you mind sharing
Well,
that?
sure. When you had your interview with him, you mentioned Quora. So that's where we met. I'd already been on Quora for about a year already, I think. And so
And
Gregory
remind
came onto
people
Quora
what
after.
that is, please.
Oh, Quora is the global Q&A online platform. So it's people ask a question about anything, and pretty much anyone can come along and answer it. So it's amazing stuff on there, and also some not so amazing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But so after the book, Gregory decided to take like the whole, well, not the whole, but like he's like an advocate for borderline personality disorder, and so to sort of like do more, he opened a space on Quora called Understanding Borderline Personality Disorder. And I mean, I'd been on Quora for a year already, and he actually noticed me. He read some of my stuff, some of the stuff I write, and he actually noticed me from that, and like contacted me to ask me if I could help with the space, because I mean I was like a veteran and he was a newbie, and Julie,
Mm-hmm.
and so yeah, I mean I had like a soft spot for him straight away. Because it's very, on Quora, for example, there's quite a big BPD like community, but it's all run by people with borderline personality disorder. So it was quite unique that this medical doctor comes along and is like actually making an effort, because he's really passionate about creating awareness and understanding and fighting the stigma. And so it really touched me that there was this guy who was just doing it because he wants to and because he cares, because especially, I mean, I noticed, especially on Quora, there's an incredible hectic stigma against BPD. We are hated. So it's really touching that he has made this effort, and it's ongoing, and he's so committed and so like steadfast in it,
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, he has a few well, I think we're all ladies, people in his life, like close loved ones with borderline personality disorder. And I mean, I'm sure you know what happens when we're in close relationships with someone.
Mm-hmm.
We tend to act out with them a little bit. So he really does get a bit of a hard time on well, I want to say occasionally. And he's just, like the title of his book, I'm Still Right Here. It's like, I mean, obviously we all feel really bad if we, like act out with him a bit. And he doesn't just sort of like, he's not a pushover, but he's like, I'm still right here. Every time we do anything, it's like I'm still right here, And I mean, one thing he always says is that he's like, I'm the safest place in the world for you.
Mm.
And that's just like,
That's really nice.
Yeah, I was really struck by that because as a clinician, I've seen it from both sides, because I know someone with that kind of profile, and I've had some clients with that kind of profile. And I was very struck by both ways of how I heard it from, like, someone like him saying, I'm still here. I'm still here. That consistency of connection, deep relatedness is so essential. And then the other side of, I could just hear the people saying, like, I'm in here, I'm still here, and not able to kind of connect the way they want because of excuse me for the word, but I'm going to say symptom set.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mm.
I don't like that word because that's not really,
Challenges.
yeah, the challenges of connecting to themselves and others.
Yeah,
So, and
kind of locked in your own mind.
yeah, it was very, very poignant for me. And the journey, the way he described the whole journey was really
Phenomenal.
brilliant.
It's
Um,
it's it's in it's brilliant. I was blown away when I read it. I was like, he can't be this amazing doctor and be a good writer, but it's ridiculous. He really, it's that the book's doing such wonders for the whole world.
yeah.
I mean, I work with it and I see the response it gets. It's crazy. It's helping so many people. It's like
Hmm.
it's just it's. I mean, we've just done on Tuesday. I did with him as well a podcast on. It was his second podcast on Press Pause. It's a non-profit. It's a non-profit organization. Can I tell you about it quickly?
Please.
It's a non-profit organization that is all about borderline personality disorder and understanding, creating awareness, and fighting the stigma. And it provides like weekly support groups and free life coaching and career coaching, and it's phenomenal. That it's very motivated. It's there's like you can get all these resources online, and they've just launched this podcast. Well, I think it's launching in March actually, but they're doing recorded podcasts at the moment, and it's actually called I can't even kill myself right. It's a bit hectic. So that's the name of the podcast, is I can't even kill myself right. So he did his second podcast with him, which I've joined him with, and he'll be doing like podcasts with him regularly, with bringing in people like he's bringing co-guests in. So he's so involved with like, I mean, that's all about BPD. It's not about anything else, he's so involved and so committed. And, like when you hear about him talking about it, it really, the suffering really hurts him. Like, he's like, it's wrong. And like the stigma and, and he always says he wishes like, he wishes he'd be alive to see a cure for BPD, because it hurts him so much. And because he has loved ones with it, it really hurts him, and that's what drives him. Well, I mean, he's driven in lots of ways to do good things, but especially with BPD, what keeps him going and so committed is the fact that he has loved ones, and he sees firsthand like what we go through. And and he's just a phenomenal human being. And like you read the book, you can see he gets it,
Right.
like, so we may be a nightmare occasionally, but he always says like, that's not really who you are. Like that's the part. Like, but the rest of who you are is just so wonderful. It's worth it. It's just worth it. And he always says, just because it's difficult doesn't mean it's not worth it.
Right.
Very wise.
I'm really not familiar with that disorder. Can you describe to me what the experience is?
Borderline personality disorder.
Yeah.
Wow, where to begin? It depends on the day.
Well, what would you say is the kind of the fundamental or core part from which all the it depends on the day phenomenon occurs?
I think it's the I want to say mood. For me, I want to say mood instability, but at the same time, my mood instability is like almost 100% as a result of external factors.
Right.
So I'm pretty like stable. I've been in therapy forever. I'm pretty stable most of the time, but I'm very easily influenced by outside external factors, like someone else's mood, and always there's always the fear of abandonment thing. I mean, that drives, I think, all of us forever. So like for Greg, let's use Gregory as an example. So if he says something, that's the slight, that is all of a sudden he doesn't care, and the whole sort of like he doesn't care, he's never cared, and so those are the kinds of things that is what like stops me from functioning properly in the world, but being so quickly, it's so difficult. Like, I understand my behavior. I think I'm pretty self-aware, and I understand what I'm doing, and I can actually almost see myself doing it, but like, you just can't stop it.
Stop it.
It's like, it's terrible. So for me at this stage, that's what I struggle with, is the ups and downs around interpersonal relationships. which that's what's left sort of for me that I need to like really like work on a lot, which is a big thing. And then
Yeah.
also the emptiness never goes away. Like that's always there.
The what
as
never
far
goes
as-
away?
Emptiness, this feeling of emptiness.
Oh,
I can try and explain it, but it's almost impossible to explain.
yeah, I can tell
I
that.
actually wrote
I was
something.
trying to figure it out.
Mhm. Would you give it a shot? Do you mind?
Okay. I actually wrote something on Quora the other day trying to explain it, so I'll see if I can remember what I wrote. It's like a sense of like uneasiness and like disquiet and foreboding. And it's like, but it's not really, it's like, it kind of feels like that. It's the uneasiness of like, it feels like there's all these different emotions that are like trying to like sort of win. It's like, it's almost like turmoil, and it's like overwhelming, but it's also like subdued. It's just like sort of hovering there under the surface, like waiting like for my full attention. You know, it's like, it's if I'm distracted doing something, then I'm not aware of it. But it's like, you know, like I always say, contentment eludes me because the emptiness never leaves. So it's almost like I can only be content if I'm actually distracted, because the emptiness is just, it's unsettling, and like, you know, it's not anxiety, but it's almost like anxiety. It's, everyone will tell you it's impossible to explain. It's just so,
There's an
it's like,
instability
how do you
there.
explain anything?
It's like you don't feel like your personality is anchored. Is that correct?
Yeah, maybe, yeah. That's probably a good way of looking at it. Yeah,
Could I take a little
Probably.
stab at it? Because I think it's a
go for it.
how you're saying
Yeah.
it. If you don't mind, I want to give people kind of an experience of the. It's actually a lot more dramatic than what I'm hearing you say. And I
Good.
would say
Well, not good, but I mean, good for me.
I I would say there's like almost an experience of a permanent gap or hole.
Yeah,
Something's not all the
there.
way there that
It's
is
like not
supposed to
finished.
be there.
Yeah.
And I would say that for many people with that configuration, that it comes from an interruption in it comes from trauma. Let me just not try to keep sounding so hoity-toity about it. It comes from trauma, deep personal trauma that interrupts the connection of yourself to yourself,
Hmm.
which interrupts
That
yourself to others.
sounds
And
pretty good.
and then that, so you can be just doing life, tootling along, and like you said, something gets said maybe offhand or something happens, and it doesn't even have to be a big deal, but it suddenly like proves the truth, being big giant quotes, of the disconnect, and calls everything into question at once. And it can be very destabilizing. Takes a lot of, it really is a hero's journey. And it's, in my experience, never a journey only for oneself. That kind of thing has a system-wide effect for others, for the whole of humanity, whether it's known or not. Um, so it's really quite something.
It really is. You explained it very well.
So
That's
how,
why I say about unsettling, because it's like that sense of like you said, there's something is missing. There's like something supposed to be there, but you don't know what.
Hmm.
how prevalent is this disorder?
Sorry?
How prevalent is the disorder?
I actually don't know what the percentages are. I think it's like I don't. I think maybe it's like 1%. Deborah probably knows better what it
Well,
is.
as soon as you ask that, that's a brilliant question, but I actually don't know.
Yeah.
I do know that there has been an increase, but I suspect it's an increase from two things. One is, in the system we were born into, there's a lot of factors that promote the development of disconnection to your own self. And I am not saying that in a superficial way, although there's a spectrum, it occurs on superficial levels too. But I also think that for a while it was like the fad. For a while, autism spectrum disorders were neurodiversity is kind of the more recent fad in psychology. So
Yeah.
and for a while it was schizophrenia back in the 80s, so it's not so much, so it's weird to tell whether it's actually more prevalent or whether it's for different reasons it has become more noticed. And
I mean, also there's the misdiagnosis
correct.
and you're right. There are literally some people that just think it's cool. I've got DPD. I'm like, no, it's not. If you had DPD, you would so not think it's cool. If you think it's cool, then you don't have it.
Yes, I would say that if they thought it was cool, because there's such an uncontrollability, it seems, to it. And so,
Oh yeah.
what do you suggest to somebody who has somebody they love and sees these kinds of reactions in them that would indicate they have this personality disorder?
Well,
what do you say helps you most, or helps anybody with in, I guess, being contained and not reactive?
Well, you just said it, being contained and not reactive. That's the key. But it's so much more than that, because, it's borderline personality disorder is suffering for everyone. It's suffering for the person who has it, and it's suffering for everyone that encounters that well, it depends on the person and the spectrum, and it's not the same for everyone. Nobody knows I have it unless they're a romantic partner or a really, really, really close friend. Otherwise, you'd never say that I have it. It doesn't show in any other way. I'm like sort of quiet borderline. So what I would say to someone who's like on Quora, I speak to a lot of exes, actually, because they'll be like discarded by a romantic partner. And Gregory also spoke to Deborah about the discard in detail during their conversation. So I speak to a lot of like exes who are like, well, my life is like, and because they get left in such confusion and they don't understand that this person that they thought was the love of their lives and who they thought loved them like more than anything, all of a sudden turned into this person they don't even recognize and is suddenly so mean and so cruel, and and the only thing I actually ever say to them is that, as like messed up and dysfunctional and twisted as it is, it's because they really love you. It's because they love you that you scare them, you terrify them, because they're just worried about, they're so scared of losing you. The love, the feelings of love, the big feelings for us are overwhelming. When big feelings are involved, and I mean I say big feelings as in love, then we just like lose control. We can't handle big feelings. It scares us because we're just worried we're going to lose it. I mean, fear of abandonment it's got to be like every person with PPD I've ever spoken to, their number one sort of like lasting, no matter how cured they are, or how recovered they are, it's always the fear of abandonment that is still there. It's like the last thing to go. And I haven't actually met anyone yet who's managed to completely lose that.
And I'm going to jump in and say, most people, as they embark on the journey of love, fear rejection and abandonment, that's like, so I want to kind of make the spectrum clear. Most of us, that's just hard. But for someone with borderline personality disorder, I would go a step further and say if something happens that has you think abandonment is happening, it's almost like getting erased or X'd out, dissolved, gone.
Yeah.
You're gone. And I don't just
in a discard, like, that's what would happen. Yeah.
I don't mean just you're gone like in the reaction. I mean, it means literally. You're gone. You have now been dismissed from the human race.
Yep.
And what I find so remarkable that I do not hear people talk about is that it's not easy. So I'm not saying it's easy, but the reactivity that can be quite extreme is like saying, I am still here.
Oh, that's
I
why the
exist.
extreme reaction.
Yes,
It's a fight back.
correct.
Like, I will not be erased.
Exactly. And that's a
That's a-
phenomenon that I don't hear people talk about. It's pretty hard to get through that, the circumstances of the interactions
Yeah.
to say that. But that's what I noticed. The people are, they are exactly what you said, Electra. And that is phenomenal about human nature, and the fact that it proves, like, for me, people are intrinsically whole. And to me, that's proof right there. Something cannot be erased, period, about each and every human being. We all know it. So even if it's incorrect processing of the whatever's occurring or whatever resulted in reactivity, underneath it is the I won't be erased. I will stay and I will become whole. That's just,
That's magnificent. That's all I can say.
yeah,
That even though
Yeah.
the strength of that positioning, because if I got this right, it's a reaction that just what somebody says or does. But because it's so strong, you go like, no, this is not taking me out. I got news for you.
that's right.
And the problem for the other is that they don't understand why the extreme reaction.
And yeah, and it would be hard because it's like, what just happened here? All I
It's
said
like,
was, I'm
yeah.
tired today, or, the toast got burned
Or,
and
yeah.
I don't know what
Or there's a
happened.
cloud in the sky, or
Yeah, yeah. So, and I don't mean to make light of it. So I'm
no,
sorry.
but it's right. It's true. It's really true. It can be at that level for some people. It really
Mhm.
can. The wind direction can change, and it can be like some random person's fault.
And,
It can be that bad.
it's very difficult to trace back and quickly trace back, oh, this somehow touched that chord of, am I real? Am I here? Like I have to fight for, I'm here. I belong. I'm whole. It can be very complicated and difficult. Yeah.
And I mean, the hypervigilance is also
Boy,
Well,
sort
you'd
of
have to have
standard.
hypervigilance if you can be thrown that easily.
Super
Then you have to have
hypervigilance.
hypervigilance. It's the only way you keep yourself stable.
Yeah, I mean, we see things that aren't even there. That's how
some
hypervigilant
of
we
it,
can be.
I actually don't know that it's not there. I actually don't know. Because, and what I
Oh,
mean by that
that's nice.
is, what I mean by that is there are so many in our Western society, Western culture, wherever it is around the world, the there are so many subtle ways of uh, separation, of invalidation, of uh,
Mhm.
positioning, hierarchical positioning. Um, it's not that there's not a lot that's good about the Western culture, but there's a lot that's not so good for the human soul, in my opinion. And so it can be pretty complicated.
Yeah.
It's
So,
what they can't suppress them. I've just read an article in Sun magazine by a woman who had been raised in by a bipolar stepfather, and she was used to so much anger coming at her and her mom that she became almost numb to it, and didn't, as an adult, would find herself tolerating a lot of abuse from men, whether it was at work or whatever, because she could cut it off. cut off a reaction, but that's not healthy either.
Mm-mm.
So it almost like we have two
Exactly.
different, it's like, it's healthy actually to stand up and, I'm not going to put up with this shit, which would come from the bipolar disorder, not your personality disorder. But what happened to her is a disorder as well, because she cannot really communicate in the world either. She communicates nothing. She doesn't know what she thinks abuse is normal.
Mm-hmm. So
And she
that's
doesn't
like,
fight it. So
yeah.
these are like two different ends of a spectrum of how you interact with something that isn't working. In her case, she's so numb or so trained not to react in order to survive, she never gets to say, enough, I'm done. And on the other end of the spectrum, in this personality disorder, it happens really quickly.
And it's extreme,
Yeah,
out of
so
proportion.
it's extreme. And there's no control of the extreme, is what I gather. Like if
Well,
you're
I mean,
triggered, it's like wham.
yeah, but I mean, of course, there's therapy and the spectrum and our combination of symptoms. There's 256 different combinations of the 9 symptoms, and so it's and you get like petulant BPD, and then so I'm more quiet, and so I mean I don't generally like just go crazy when I get triggered. I'm more to be like a sulky kind of like, love me. As opposed to like I hate you and like screaming and shouting. Like that's not
Okay,
really
so there's
like
a
me
spectrum of
anymore. So,
response.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's the same extreme crazy thinking. It's the same distorted. You lose touch with reality basically. Just like you can't think clearly. You're not thinking clearly. You're being completely unreasonable. You can't really reason with us when we're in that mind frame of, then we just like, it's like a switch, and like flip a switch, and it's like we're someone else who doesn't think normally.
So what
Until
helps
we
you?
sort
What
of
helps you?
come out of it.
What helps you? What's the word I want? Modulate, or what helps you? Whether like, it sounds to me like you tend to retreat. Someone else might be very explosive. And there's whatever, all the different permutations in between. But either way, there's something allows for things to even out, so you can re-engage and build healthy pathways. So what helps you? Do you mind saying?
No, I think what's helped me most is 11 years of therapy. And that's helped a lot. But I'd have to say, I'll use Gregory as an example again. He's a good example. He almost finds a way to like reason with you, even though he says like he's like, there's nothing I can say when you're like that. It's just, but he finds a way to like get through. Or I literally just run out of steam and I just give up.
Okay.
Because once I've snapped, it's out of my hands. Then it's just like,
Right.
My thing is to not let it happen. I need to make sure that it doesn't get there, but continuing to stay in touch with reality. So I'm getting much better at that, or much better with that. So that happens doesn't happen a lot anymore. I'm not particularly like, I'm not really volatile anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But, and also like with Gregory, for example, the whole like, I'm still right here and say what you want to say. I'm here. You very quickly run out of steam, because it's kind of like, because also I think when we get like that, we actually want to fight. I think we want to we want a reaction, I think. And he doesn't really, he does sometimes, because he's human and his feelings can get hurt,
Mm-hmm.
But he quickly like sorts himself out and does all the right things. It's crazy.
But it's
He's
some
like
kind of like an acknowledgement of you are where you are. You feel like a validation, and I'm not going to respond from there. So I'll wait till, to use your words, you run out of steam, or that phenomenon runs out of steam, and then I'm here and we'll be in continue our connection. So even the
Yeah.
moving backwards of I'm not going to respond into that is still a kind of a maintaining a connection.
Yes.
Brilliant.
Yes. No, it's phenomenal. No one in my life has ever um, been able to handle
Yeah,
me like this.
yeah,
I mean, since I've known him, I think it's about a year now. I mean, I've learned more about borderline personality disorder from him than from my own therapist that I've been seeing for 11 years. I've learned,
brilliant.
I've made progress in the last
Yeah,
year that I've made that was like it streaks. Like in 11 years, I got like halfway, and in the last year, I've gone like another like 20%.
brilliant.
Because his level of understanding of the mechanics and the nuances and of the disorder is phenomenal. It's like he's this close to actually having it because he knows so much about it. And he's pointed out things like that I do, or that I'm like, oh my gosh, like I didn't even know. Like my therapist didn't point out certain things to me. I mean, I love my therapist; he's great, and I mean, he's the reason I'm alive. But Gregory's just like, I'm so grateful that I met him because like
Right.
it's made such a impact on my life. And he sees something in me that I still don't see in myself. But he has like faith in me, and he's like he sees some kind of value, and he's so like supportive and consistent.
That's the key.
So
That's the
What
key.
is electric?
He
phenomenal.
sees something of value in her. And that's a core belief that once established allows a lot of variance on either side of behavior. But when I know you believe that about me, then I'm willing to be vulnerable. I'm willing to not judge my own wacko behavior, but to know that this person who is with me values me. And that's the
And
most
because I
important
value
thing.
him so much,
Mm-hmm.
and because I value him so much, and
Yes.
Yeah.
think that he's
And it's a
like, if he can
mutual.
value me, yeah. But it's
It's
like if
mutual
he can see
arrangement.
something in me, then
Yeah.
it must be there.
I'm fascinated about your thinking, the thinking that you're talking about, normal thinking. We have something called the templates of the language of creation, and they look at helping our thinking change
Yes.
into something that is life generating and life enhancing. And I'm just wondering, it would be interesting to work with you to see if, because for those of us who think we have a normal personality, and I think that's quotes, the brain finds it initially a little bit discombobulating to have a new network established in the format of these templates. But it's possible to change, because what the templates do is they create new neural networks connected to with something that's only life enhancing and life generating. And that seems to be a key for you, or for people with this disorder, is that they see a behavior or something is not life generating or life enhancing. And that's why either you go to the sulk or you go to the, I'm going to get you for saying that and introducing that into my world. It would be interesting to work with you to see how the thinking shifts if you start writing in those. And you'd have to write it a bit. What do you think, Deb?
I think so too, but I would start with a conversation, like a presentation, because if I'm, you correct me, Melanie, the, like checking it out for safety. Do I feel safe doing this? What do I think? It would be like, let me get used to this. Let me edge up on this. Because that safety is so important. So, the presentations that you've done, would really be, it's so interesting because that's something that, wow, that's really an interesting question. But I think that would be a great place to start, to give a initial contact with what this writing practice is. Let me feel it. Let me get a sense of it. Let me try and
Understand it a bit better first.
yeah, and because there's absolutely nothing harmful or dangerous, but sorry people, there's nothing harmful about them or anything, and it does move you out of any thinking patterns that are not life enhancing. Like any vestiges, like you will
That's sure.
go towards anything that any residue of something's wrong with me will leave you
Wow.
over
That's what
time.
I'm thinking.
very
It's a
interested.
pattern in the brain that if you can
Mhm.
introduce another thinking pattern that's life enhancing and life generating, that could help add new neural networks and give them more options in their thinking, just like it does for those who think we're normal.
Yeah,
You know, because we all have neural pathways that lead us to life defeating behaviors.
sure.
Okay, whether it's the gal who will never confront violence that allows it, or you know, it's all different ranges we have, and the templates give us an opportunity to build new neural networks
Yeah.
that
Oh, very
support us
interesting.
in what we crave in our lives.
So
And
that's
I would think that would really be an interesting
I think so
process.
too. I think so too. And then, but what I'm finding so fascinating is by you bringing it up, I'm having to think it from both sides, you, Melanie, and you, Electra, and the giving the permission to let people say, all right, there are seven levels to this, and you start with one, and there's no particular pace. You could be at level one for years if that's what is true for you. But that's really fascinating because the different way thinking patterns that we're constructed from or that we're accustomed to have a lot of value, and that safety factor could be important. There is,
I think
I
it's
hope I'm communicating well because there's nothing unsafe about these, but if there's any attachment to something's wrong with me, just for a really broad, bizarre example, if there's any attachment to that, it will get dismantled and shifted. It will over time. So it's like,
That sounds amazing. Yeah.
yeah. And if you get any safety from particular sets of beliefs and thinking, it just has to be honored, is all I'm saying. Honored and carefully. But you're the one in charge. Like you, Melanie, or me, when I learned them, I'm the one in charge of how fast I went, of how,
Yeah.
and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, you just brought up a lot of things for me to think about, Electra. And if you're interested, Melanie, you know how to get hold of us so that if that's something you're interested in. But okay, so we got about 15 minutes. I want to switch to, first off, is there anything else you want to say about Gregory's well-being for anyone who may be interested? Because people are going to want to send their love and prayers, you know? So is there anything else there? That's number one. And then number two, I really do. We've kind of touched on it. For me, it's been embedded in the conversation, but I want to be more direct about what do you think has someone stay so consistently engaged on behalf of other human beings? And what has you stay so consistently engaged on behalf of yourself? I'm not going to pass that one over, because if you weren't staying on consistently engaged on behalf of yourself, you wouldn't be where you are. You wouldn't, like, there needs to be a lot of honor for that. Do you see what I'm saying?
I
So
do.
those are my two things I'd like you to touch on, both of you.
Okay. Well, Gregory's actually doing a bit better. I suppose much better. He's been out of the hospital for a while, so it's everything's looking much better. And I'm sure he will appreciate messages or from anyone who wants to send well wishes. I'm sure he'd love that. Okay. So I mean, if I'm going to speak from Gregory's point of view, with sort of like for the first one of why anybody would, from his point of view, I think, I mean, I've said quite a lot of it already about, like, and I mean, he's just, so I'm not actually, it's difficult to say what keeps someone motivated to, I think sometimes people don't even know themselves what keeps them motivated to be on a path of, like, they just do something. And you know, his level of commitment is crazy, because he's also, you know, a medical officer with the National Disaster Medical System. And I mean, that's just like additional sort of like giving back and putting his life at risk, and being shot at in helicopters. And, you know, it's like, just because he just wants to help you, like, mankind. You know, and I mean, from his point of view, he says it's because he sees a wrong and it needs to be righted. You know, so I suppose there's a bit of like that with him, is like he believes in like justice and it's got to be right. And you know, and he can't handle suffering. He just doesn't want to see anyone suffer. He really doesn't. He like really wants to try and like alleviate suffering, because it's literally like it hurts him. You know, like he says, when I hurt, he hurts as well. Like he can't not hurt if I hurt. Like if I cry, he hurts. You know, so it's I think it's an innate kind of just character. I don't know, like not a characteristic. Just it's just sort of like, in his case, it's just part of him, and
Yes,
that's just like, it's his whole. It's all of him, actually. It's like who he is. You know. And he's like, he's just a born sort of caretaker. He just looks after everyone around him, and you know, that's just sort of how he is. And I mean, I think specifically with the borderline personality disorder endeavor, it's because he has the loved ones. You know, because he said to me the other day, like, why don't I have a space on Quora about diabetes? He says, like, because, well, he mentioned a few reasons why, but like there's no stigma, and you know, it's like, and there's already a lot of awareness about it, and he doesn't have any loved ones with it. But with BPD, there's so much stigma and confusion, and there's no awareness, and it's so badly judged, and there's just so much wrong, and it's such a big thing to like try and fix, and like, you know, so that's why like he's like zoned in on BPD so much, because it's just so much, and it's been such a part of his world. I mean, from the book, you know, what a very important relationship for him. So for him, that's, I think the driving factor there is that he wants to take the suffering away. It's just like, he wishes he could find a cure.
So what if that's true for everyone? Like, you're right. Who can say? And you sent me a list on the email. His accomplishments took up about this much of the page. Not everyone is that accomplished in that way, but in other ways. It may not have, you know, awards or whatever, but that doesn't mean that the accomplishments of kindness and caring and giving aren't just as skilled or just as there.
Absolutely.
But so I guess in a way, I'm hearing you say you may not have control over what you're called to. I suppose that's the point of a calling. You don't necessarily say, sure, I agree. It's just there. But he responded. as do many people. And he used his, whatever his skills and talents were, he had the capacity to accomplish those degrees and awards and the different things you listed.
He just has such an outstanding work ethic, but he applies this, the work ethic applies to everything in his life.
Mhm.
I mean, he wrote the book, he did it in 6 months, you know, it's like, it's just, he just has this level of work ethic of just, and he's very much like, he believes in working, like, he believes in working hard, you know,
Mhm.
he doesn't believe in entitlement, and, you know, he's like, you should work hard. And I mean, I mentioned he's learning Gaelic at the moment. I mean, come on, who learns Gaelic just because it's challenging, and because why? You know, and I mean, like, so, and with borderline personality disorder, he just went and learned everything about it. I mean, he knows more than my therapist does. He just went out of his way and learned everything about it, and it's like he's like an expert in the field now. You know,
Mhm.
and he's also one of those doctors that, I mean, he has all these specialties and subspecialties, but he can tell you anything about, like, anything about the human body. You can ask him, you know, most doctors will be like, oh no, but that's not my specialty, you know, I'm a, you know, orthopedic surgeon. But it's like, you can ask him anything, because he's sort of like this, has this opinion of like, well, I'm a physician. It's like the whole body, you know, you don't just learn like a bit, like this little bit of it, because it's all attached to you. It's like all one thing.
Right. Right.
It's one body, and everything affects everything. So I can't just learn that. Yeah, it's like he
Yeah.
has these, you know, the way his mind thinks, you know. Even the reason why cats are his favorite pet is exceptional.
Say that again. Even what?
And I said, even the reason why cats are his favorite pet is exceptional. It's because you have to earn their respect.
Yes.
That's
Yes,
for
you
That's
do.
why. That's why cats.
Yes. Yes, you do. And I found him very engaging and open to learning, like malleable. I found him very malleable when I was
Oh,
speaking
yes,
to him,
definitely.
which
Yeah.
I value, you know?
Well, it's
Yeah.
a matter
No,
of
he's
taking
very
new
open.
information and incorporating it within different fields that you already know, seeing the
Mhm.
relationships. But it really feels like I think everybody has some level of what this borderline personality disorder, because
Oh, yeah.
it depends how much we depend on the other to define who we are. And if we interpret what they say as a slight or a negative judgment of us, we all have different levels of reaction. It sounds like the borderline reaction disorder just is in the mind more, is sharper than, let's say, anybody else, because I could get hurt by what somebody says and want to go off and sulk, or want to go back and insult them again. But it sounds like there's a structure within the brain that flips it. It's a quick flip in the neural network.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
We make it into a lot more than it actually is.
yeah, or it really may be what it was. To be really frank, it could be
Yeah.
exactly what you thought it was. But it isn't within prescribed civilized behavior that you're supposed to react. So somebody like me, let's say, if I get hurt by what somebody says, I can either spit back at them and try and hurt them. I can go and sulk, but I do it within the prescribed civilization rules of proper behavior, right? Whereas that buffer that keeps me from whacking them is not there in this sport. Is that correct?
Basically,
That's what it sounds like. It's not there.
in a nutshell. Yeah.
Yeah.
Our responses are not in line with, you know, not in line with, they're not proportionate to the crime.
So what allows somebody to really be with people with this disorder is if they're very stable and realize that I am who I am, and I can apologize for the effect of my language, but I did not mean it. And when they can hold that, then they can that's how they stay with a person with borderline disorder, but they have to be
Absolutely.
kind of really stable. Does that sound right?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
very interesting. This is fascinating how this works. You know, because
Yeah,
we
it's
have this
crazy.
judgment about what is supposed to be normal.
Yeah.
And the truth is,
Yeah.
what is considered normal in society is not always.
And I would actually say the response is proportional to the experience.
Yeah,
So your experience of what got said, even if it's, let's just pretend it's minor in one perception, the external world, your experience of it is you have an exactly proportional response to what,
That's a good point.
yeah,
yeah, because
Just not one other people would understand.
no, Electra's point is well taken. It doesn't fit the prescribed social proprieties, and it doesn't fit what other people say is the proportional response. But then there's people that are real jerks and bullies, and so they'll say, "Oh, you're overreacting," while they're enjoying the inflamed response. So there's that whole category too. But
Yeah, it's not always our fault.
in that last couple of minutes, we've got 3 minutes.
right.
I would like to hear, if you're willing, what keeps you going on your own behalf. That is so
Sure.
remarkable to me that each of us have our version of that, but we're talking about you right now. What keeps you
It's a
going? That is, go ahead.
very, very difficult. That's very difficult for me to answer because I'm often ready to give up.
But you don't.
And well, I'm still right here.
Yes.
But that's very difficult for me to answer. And I mean, if I'm going to be really honest and just be honest, it's like it's at the moment, especially, it comes a lot from looking around me. Like Julie from the book, for example. I mean, I've obviously gotten to know her, and she is just like Gregory calls her Rocky because she just keeps getting up. It's like I'm just like humbled, and I'm like, get up, like this is embarrassing, just get up. Like literally, if I'm still here, it's not because of my inner strength. I don't feel it's because of and because of someone like Gregory who believes in me and tells me you can get up again and you can, and like this will pass, and that support is there, is like helping me, drive me, because I'm not doing so great doing it myself. So like, if I'm going to be honest, then there's no real magical thing I can think of that is keeping me here and going. I'm literally like at the moment relying on the resources around me, which are still here, so it's working.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
But I know we got like 30 seconds, but I really consider that drive in each of us, in its different forms and permutations, to be magical and heroic and real demonstration of what humanity is, each of us.
Well, I mean, hearing you say it makes complete sense. So it's probably there. I'm just not enlightened enough to be in touch with it, but it makes complete sense. It can't just be about, someone else. Like I'm
Well,
alive because they are.
then an opportunity awaits you. And so it's 9, it's time for us to end. But since we're having to do this differently, can you just stay on for a couple minutes
Sure.
after she stops the recording?
Okay.